поглед към всички. Благодаря.
Next on the stage, I would like to have someone who already you've seen, Mr. Manyu Moravenov, the Chief Executive of Bulgarian Stock Exchange. And to make it faster, I would like also to invite Ms. Ludmila Petrova, Head of Operations at BNP, Paribas Personal Finance. And also Antoaneta Stoyanova, Head of Environmental and Social Governance Department, Sofia at the airport. Welcome again. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Please have a seat. We'll be talking about sustainable finance, and that's why everyone here actually is one way or another involved, and that's the reason to be here. I've started with our personal commitment, obviously, to making this not just talks, but reality, and investing in sustainability is one of the key elements of what we do. But I will start, if you allow me all, with Manyu, because the stock exchange could be a great multiplier of the message, and you have already started initiatives which are in alignment with our discussion. And my first question for you is, what is the role of the financial institutions in general to mitigate the negative trends of what we see as global warming and to lower the carbon emissions?
To be honest, Plamen, the role is huge and maybe one of most important in the business world. Of course, it is very difficult for me as a financial expert to look at the finance as always stable things, but sustainable is something different. Why the role is so important? Because the financial institution and the financial system is the blood source of every business. Every business and every company needs financing for growth. Even here we have on the next room startups that are looking for financing. And of course financing is debt financing or some mixed like mezzanine and equity. All these elements of financial system are very important, and what is going now, we see that the first regulation regarding ESG, the sustainable finance, the first regulation comes through directly to the regulated financial institutions and market players. Of course, the banks and biggest investors, institutional investors. And this is not only regulation. I could say, this is my feeling, that it's not only regulation because, of course, we don't have time. The transformation has already started, and it is unreversible. The war of Ukraine is just catalyzing this process. But I see that the human mind is changing regarding the sustainable future of our world, and this is not only because of they're doing some business, but this is, as I said, a changing of moral and ethics, the virtues that of the human beings.
Optimist.
Yes,
I'm hopeful that you are right. But
I see this changing in a lot of people, even the leaders of one of the biggest financial institutions. And I have a very recent example from Accelerated Green Forum that was organized by the Green Center, the Green Finance and Energy Center, founded by the Stock Exchange and 30 leaders about 10 years ago. And I saw their message there. One of the biggest banks some of the biggest banks of Bulgaria said that in a couple of years, at least 50% of their portfolio will be with sustainable investments, that mean credits in sustainable businesses. So this is the future.
Thank you so much. I would like to, because it's obviously we are talking about sustainable finance, but we need to have both business and government. So I will have one and the same question, dear Mr. Minister, and both Vanya. What is the role, according to where you have set the next steps of the government, what is the role of the government in building sustainable finance and creating a sustainable and resilient economy? Maybe first you, and then
the role for the government, and I will elaborate on the role of the business.
Exactly.
Sure. I think the first role of the government is to not be a hindrance. Basically, we see business and we see social movement in that direction. I think the government should be supportive. I don't subscribe to the cheerleader role that a lot of our colleagues, let's say, in Europe want to see the government play. I don't think the government should be distorting the market, and I don't think the government should be playing a cheerleader role. I think what the government should do is it should do the supporting regulation to make sure this happens, but then let the investors make the choices. At least that's what I subscribe to.
I can confirm this, by the way, because we at Mastercard, we strongly believe in the data and researches we are doing, and our researches definitely show that 77% of the people, of the active population, thinks that the business, the big companies, could have much bigger impact than the government on sustainability. But here I will add something from my own experience. I truly believe that partnership is the key. Public-private partnership is the key for every successful project and for being able to make scale. And to answer to your question, what is the role of Mastercard? I will refer to something that you said, Plamen, in your opening speech, that now it's time to act. We, Mastercard, we are giving the tools, the technology, the ideas, the data to businesses, to governments, and to people to act. And you will see this from some of the examples here on the stage.
No, I look forward, actually, for those examples. That's why we have the panel with particular representatives of businesses, both from finance and transportation and logistics. And I would like to address my next question to the representative of Sofia Airport. Values. ESG is a core value for the investment fund Meridian, which is behind the project. Let me know more about the company, the environmental aspect of the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
We just need a microphone.
Thank you first for the invitation to speak in front of this forum. It is an honor for us. Let me first explain that SoftConnect and the Investor Meridian are not the entire airport. SoftConnect is the airport operator. Please imagine the airport as an ecosystem. It is an infrastructure inhabited by many living organisms. The airport operator is the host for many companies, like the airlines, like the ground handling operators, like the commercial companies. So we operate the airport, and we took the concession about a year ago. SoftConnect, as well as the Investor Meridian, has put environmental and social and good governance practices at the heart of our policy. This is why they have me. Since 2 months, I had the ESG team to make ESG values of Meridian and ESG values of SoftConnect known to the entire ecosystem. 1 year after the start of the concession, Sofia Airport achieved level 3 carbon accreditation. which means that it is concerned not only about its own emissions, but about the greenhouse gas emissions of all inhabitants at the airport. We have also made a commitment about reducing our own carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, to zero by 2036 with some offsets, and by 2050 completely to reduce the emissions to zero of Sofia airport. And we have also committed to influence our partners, all the third parties at the airport. What this means, not only investment in green technology, not only investment in renewable energy, but also giving an example with our social commitment to our partners, to our environment, to our community, to our employees, and also with the commitment for a green environment and with the commitment for excellent passenger experience.
Thank you so much because what you're saying as a commitment sounds like if you compare to all other airports, what I hear is equal to the commitments I hear from many of them. Actually, some of your words for 2030 are a good match for the goal 2030 by UN. So that's a great news to hear that also Sofia is joining this on the way. And I believe this is where we have to go. And what about the banking sector? What is the sustainable finance from your point of view at BNP Paribas Personal Finance?
Actually, what I would like to share is to make a reference to your opening speech, Mr. Russev, because what you referred to are the unprecedented challenges that we are facing today. Both depletion and restriction of resources, but also biodiversity challenges, social inequalities, and other international processes that put an impact and a heavy impact on our ecosystems. And that is the moment to ask the question, where does this all stem from? And it stems from consumption. And that is why we at BNP Paribas Personal Finance are convinced that consumption lies at the core of a great part of these challenges. And that is why we also believe that consumption might be the remedy, the key. And as a consumer finance bank, of course, one of the leading in Europe, especially being a part of the BNP Paribas group, we have formulated a sustainable manifesto which shows the main direction in which we act. How do we act? Just as Ms. Stoyanova already shared, first we set an example, because if the bank is not exemplary, then it cannot expect its clients and its partners to be exemplary also. And that is why we try to set and spread a good example by engaging ourselves in both volunteering actions through our global program 1 Million Hours of Help, in which our collaborators and our team participate for the social causes in terms of supporting certain lines like financial literacy, digital literacy, social inclusion, and some marginalized group support also. On the second hand, of course, it's the way that we are doing business, because as a consumer financing bank, we have an impact on the consumption solutions of our clients. We can put our stamp on their choices, on what we finance, on how we do finance, and the conditions on which we finance it. And that is why it is through education and through setting an example and through transforming our own business models, practices, through formulating new offers, new products, and new services, by which we actually put the second line of our impact on the sustainable finance. And the third one, of course, is to spread our own competence for the fidelity and for the bonus of society beyond our core business. To take our human expertise of each of us, of each of our human competencies, and put it at the service of a group or at a cause where we can be really of use and supporting. And that is how we imagine the sustainable finance, and that is how we work for it in order to push it forward by also encompassing our partners and by also pushing together initiatives that make the consumption move from consumerism to conscious consumption choice of our everyday. And as an example, I would like to give, for instance, the sustainable credit card that we did together with our partners of Mastercard, because in this way we use recycled and recyclable materials in order to provide the credit card that is in the pocket of our clients. On the other hand, we also are teaching them in other BNP Paribas personal finance geographies to monitor their impact and to know what is the impact and the ecological footprint of each of their transactions and how they can offset the impact of these transactions. And thus people are getting more conscious, and in return, if they can monetize this through a certain incentivization, they are even more willing to take the next step. And that is how it is done, to make each one of us, as a professional, as a person, to start the positive impact with himself and to make the next step and to take a partner with him.
Thank you so much. Actually, Vanya, I mean, I have so much respect for what Mastercard is doing, particularly a good person, Raja Rajamanar, is chairing our Brand Innovation Summit, and he is the CMO and president of Mastercard, particularly healthcare vertical, but I follow his inventions in marketing and communications, supporting causes. Big brands must go for supporting causes. But I would like to know how Mastercard particularly, because at the end of the day, it's about the customer, right? We all have to reach the customer, and this customer should work with us one way or another. So do you think that, because Manyu was so positive, saying that he sees a mindset change, is there a mindset change? And do you think that you can really impact the customer's behavior to become more responsible?
Thank you very much for this question, Plamen. Actually, I'm also a very optimistic person, and I also believe that the changes are happening and people's minds is changing, but this is because people are also changing. And we see that the new generation is extremely responsible and very demanding. And demanding meaning demanding in a good way. They know what they want and why they want it. And this drives their choice towards the big brands, towards the financial services, towards everything. And those people, they are not loyal to the brands anymore. They are loyal to themselves and to causes they believe. That's why we at Mastercard, we also are changing constantly in order to see to set the adaptation. Adaptation is key, and this is the only way to survive and to evolve. We are adapting to those new customers, new customer expectations, but we are adapting, not only we as a company, but we are helping our partners, the bank, financial institution, fintech companies, governments, merchant, and so on. We are helping them also to adapt using our technology. And I liked very much what the lady from Google said, that the technology extends and expands you. This is a great statement. I would also add that technology evolves you. And we create different technologies, but it's not only to create something and to tick the box that we have it. We are always following a holistic approach in order to cover the entire journey and to be able to be a one-stop shop for our partners, to have the solution for each their, let's say, problem or goal. And last but not least, during last years, we are moving from pure social responsibility to sustainable business, where the companies are not just donating or supporting something, but they are part inside the problem and helping solving it.
Dear Minister, do you think that sustainable finance could be, because from what we are discussing, I heard your vision on leaving it to the business, but do you think that politically, and now it's easy for you to say, or not actually that easy at that moment exactly, but do you think that governments could really make it somehow more attractive for people to become more responsible and more sustainable in their behaviors?
It's a good question. And fundamentally, it comes down to, I think, let's say the example of Mastercard. If you have two cards, one of them has a higher interest rate than the other one, but it's green, would the customer pick, would they actually pay to go green? Because going green is expensive. It doesn't come free.
In Bulgaria, we say it's good, but cheese comes with money, right?
Sure, we can use that as a metaphor as well. So the question is how much we as a society and every individual consumer and every company is willing to pay in order to move off cheaper fossil fuels. And I think two things should be clear. One, it doesn't come free, so we shouldn't pretend it comes free. Two, in order for it to actually be sustainable, it needs to come at a system level. And if you look at things like energy systems, if we move 100% photovoltaic, it's not sustainable. You need to have the storage, you need to have the mix, you need to know when you have consumption, for example, and that it matches with the supply of electricity. So I think the role of government, as I said, is to set the framework and let businesses and consumers make that choice. And also to the extent that there is a social consensus that we are moving in a more sustainable direction, to make sure that the large systems are properly designed to be able to support it. And be very explicit about the cost that comes with it. Because I think pretending that green comes at the same cost is the biggest disservice we can do to society, and to consumers and to companies. Truth of the matter is, depending on the business process, green is usually between 2 and 3 times more expensive than conventional alternatives. It's not percentages, it's times. And we need to be very cognizant of that fact, and we need to be very upfront with that fact. And quite frankly, what I've been advocating, and we are seeing it happening more and more, is we need to remove the marketing of green and turn it into a conscious choice, because that's the only way in which it will actually be sustainable going forward.
All right, remove the marketing and make it a conscious choice.
Exactly.
That's, I believe we should do this. The question is how. I'm not expecting you to tell me this though, but let's talk about what the banks and financial institutions generally in the world and in Bulgaria are ready to adopt the ESG standards. And how do you think they stand compared to their, compare Bulgaria to foreign peers and maybe Europe to international foreign peers? That would be an interesting point of view.
Yes. I'm in general prefer to be optimistic. This is my...
That's fantastic.
Yes, yeah. I prefer to be optimistic. But the real situation, especially in Bulgaria, is that there is a huge differences of knowledge regarding ESG. Of course, the most regulated financial system is quite acquainted with these requirements and standards. Even the standards are under development. A few weeks ago, the project of ESG reporting standards were open for public discussions. The taxonomy is not ready. It is under developing also. So a lot of small companies and ordinary, not so educated people or persons who are not so close to the business, they are not very acquainted with what is ESG and sustainable finance. On the other hand, on one hand. On the other hand, there we've already seen a lot of flows, a lot of money flows for ESG and sustainable and green investments around the world, even in Bulgaria. So it is a fashion, and it's going to be more fashion in the future. So the big question is if their money will go really to green investments or to sustainable investments in projects, or we'll face some greenwashing. You've heard about such scandals even in Europe, and not only very big companies were involved in this scandal. So this is very, very important to have educational program for different level of business and persons. One of the way is the biggest to show with good example, the bigger players as Mastercard and as big banks. This is one of the way of interaction, but the other way is through educational programs, through manuals, etc. And this is what the stock exchange is doing in Bulgaria, together with its partners in Green Center. We've already created and give to the general public ESG reporting manual guidelines, and we become one of the 60 countries around the world with such manuals so far. And these manuals are quite easy understandable for not only for big companies, because currently only big companies are obliged to do ESG measuring and reporting. But what I see that a lot of small companies, even startups, are quite interested in ESG measuring and reporting. Why? Because their investors want to measure them before doing the investments. And
that's what we do at Founders Games.
Yes, and this is why it is very important to have good knowledge what exactly is ESG, and with some good practices. And we're trying to do this, and of course with good and objective measurement using the standards that are already around the world, but there are so many, and it is good to have something that could work in practice in Bulgaria. The next steps for us will be to create an ESG measuring, and this is not only carbon printing. This is also regarding social responsibility and corporate governance. That's mean in interacting with the stakeholders. I'm not very sure how many people in this room and that are listening us have already thought about their situation in their company. If they have a general equality, if social responsibility is only giving some funds to someone or something else. And this is very important knowledge that company must know before reporting what they're doing. And we already have quite good developed standards for measurement of ESG, especially from the international consulting companies. And the Bulgarian Stock Exchange is working very close with one of them, Refinitiv, and I hope that soon we will have a quite good set of for ESG measuring for listed companies, of course.
This is very, very important, Manyu. Sorry for interrupting you, but indeed, at the end of the day, very soon, and we do this already for the past 3 years, one of the factors that we measure with startups, one of the 6, is what would be the impact of the company if it becomes a unicorn or a trillion company over building sustainability. And this is what all the investors in the other room actually are measuring. Now, the more reliable, I mean, there are, if you look, I'm sure you know, Older here knows know exactly how complicated is the measurement system currently, particularly in European Union, and what you have to measure, and that you have to put tens of people in your company so you can measure every single thing, which startups cannot do, by the way. That's not possible. So by default, you can't.
It is going to be possible soon.
That's what I mean. That's why I'm saying that having these instruments that would support this, making it an easy and straightforward process would be great. And I would love to hear from Ludmila, what is the crossing point between sustainable finance and innovation and entrepreneurship, where social inclusion obviously is there. Where do you see it?
Well, for us as one of the...
Microphone, if you may, please. Yeah.
For us as one of the players on the stage of sustainable finance, there is for sure a very visible crossing point. On one hand, because innovations and social inclusion are playing in the territory of sustainable finance. But on the other hand, there are very practical examples, like the one that I already shared about making consumers really make sustainable and conscious choices every day. And just as a last second, there is also a lot of innovation in the area, and also a lot of initiatives on behalf of Mastercard and other system players that enable business to take part in this major transformation.
I know that this panel shall never find a solution of how we make people more sustainable by default and companies becoming more than this. But I know that we need to talk about it, and I know that we need to give great examples and become opinion leaders so that we see our world a better place, at least a better place, the same good place for our children. So thank you so much for this. I appreciate your time and being here at the Webit stage, and look forward to stay at the forefront leadership of creating sustainable solutions. Thank you.
Thank you.